Okay, so what are the top 10 ways to really make your offer stand out, Justin? First and foremost, obviously price. Like, you got to make sure that the price is going to be competitive. You could load a ton of great terms. They're like waived inspections, strong down payment, and everything else. But if your price isn't competitive, then you're not going to win that house. So price definitely, absolutely 100% matters. It's one of the most important things to the seller. Second thing, the appraisal coverage. So in our market with homes escalating up above the list price significantly, the ability to cover that gap if the home doesn't appraise for how high you're escalating can have a big impact on being able to get your offer accepted. So you can specify in your offer exactly how many extra dollars you could cover if the home didn't appraise. Because in a normal market, if the home doesn't appraise, the seller has to reduce the price to the appraised amount or put the home back on the market, and neither one of those things is good for the seller. And so that's on the minds of a lot of sellers in our market right now. The third one is the inspection strategy. About 90% of buyers are waiving their inspections right now, so they're contingencies. So if you have an inspection contingency, it can be super hard to get your offer accepted. You need to have a different approach, either a pre-inspection, a seller procured inspection, something like that. I've got a whole video of breaking down inspection options in our market. Contingencies, you can put in 10, 12, 15 different contingencies in a real estate contract. You need to make sure your offer does not have a lot of those contingencies in our current market, so try to reduce those just to your finance contingency. If anything else is in there, it can be really hard to get your offer accepted just because it looks like you're looking for a way to get out of the contract. So the terms definitely matter on your contingencies. Not having a home to sell is another big one. Like, if you're a contingent buyer, it can be almost impossible to get your offer accepted right now just because the seller is going to be getting multiple offers in many cases. If one of those buyers is needing to sell their home, then that offer strategy is going to get pushed aside because it's an additional risk for the seller, if that makes sense. Being able to offer rent back is another way to make your offer stand out. A rent back is where someone is buying and selling at the same time, and they need to stay in that house for a little bit of time after it's closed and have time to close on their new home and move out of that house and into the next one. So being able to offer 2 to 4 weeks for rent back for free can definitely help your offer stand out as well. Number 7, earnest money. Earnest money is like a deposit when you're buying a house. It's not an additional cost, so it's a really subjective amount. I recommend 1 to 3%. 3% is going to be strong, going to really stand out. 1% is going to be perceived as kind of a weak offer, so you want to make sure you get as close to 3% earnest money as possible. Remember, you got to have that money, quick access to it. It's due within 2 business days of getting your offer accepted, so you got to have that in cash or a checking account or something like that. Love letters, I call this a sympathy letter to the seller. I like to include these with all my offers, just a letter from the buyer to the seller explaining who you are, what you love about that house, and then most importantly, a picture of you doing something fun with your family. The goal is to just humanize you and make you really stand out and be more than just a name on a piece of paper. A lot of sellers care about who's getting the house next. That's one way that they can definitely connect with you without you actually meeting them. The 9th one is communication with the listing agent. It's really important that your buyer agent has really close communication with the listing agent throughout the whole process. They're actively communicating with them to get the pulse on showings, and they can tell you, how much interest the home is getting, how many other offers they think they're going to get, and also how many just general showings they've had. Showings are kind of a barometer of how many offers you might get on the property. So that communication between the listing agent and the buyer agent that's representing you is super important. The last one is the lender. If you use an online lender, it can be very hard to get your offer accepted. You need to work with a local lender that's got a good reputation. We have to submit the approval letter with your offer when we put your offer into the listing agent. So it's important that person has good credibility, they're accessible to talk to the listing agent if they need to reach out to them, and that they're not just some online lender like Quicken Loans.